You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
Welcome everyone to the Eternal Tournament Series for the 11th of March. This is the 5th weekly of Season 3. I am Bairdrus, and I am joined today by my wonderful co-caster, Truedawn.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
And we are going to be casting a wonderful tournament for y'all today. As I'm sure most of y'all are aware, the patch hit on, I believe it was Wednesday. Might have been Thursday, actually. So we have a whole bunch of card changes for today that seem to have shaken the meta up quite a little bit.
Yeah, certainly. A lot of the more prominent cards in the format have been changed, namely Champion of Chaos and Frontier Jito. The most important impact of all of this, I believe, is that the Frontier Jito deck now doesn't really exist, at least not in its old form. So when you take the fastest deck in the format and eliminate it, or at the least make it much slower, it raises the floor on the whole format, making it harder to go underneath certain decks, slowing everything down. So I expect us to see a decent amount of slower decks trying out more synergistic strategies, and that's what we're going to actually be seeing in this matchup.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of slower decks. And first up, we're going to have a RedWorld on Fiery Combri versus Superhans on Dino Crown. So let's take a look at RedWorld's deck. We should have some images up on the screen for y'all. And yeah, I mean, this is essentially a Combri deck splashing fire for what looks like Torch and Jack, and also Akaria in the sideboard, of course.
Yeah, it's interesting to see them add in a whole new color for not very many cards. Torch is very powerful. Jack is useful in a mid-range shell when you can both be aggressive and need to slow them down. Torch got a lot better if it wasn't already good enough, with Champion of Chaos now always being at 3 toughness regardless of what threshold you have. So that's certainly a powerful tool in the metagame now. So I could definitely see with Find the Way, Seek Power, it's not a huge cost to make a little splash. So we'll see if he gets paid off for it over the course of the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. We will hope that his power base doesn't affect him too much, because the deck looks pretty sweet overall. I definitely like the inclusions of the Jack and the Akarias and the Torches. So we'll see how that works out. But let's go ahead and check out a deck that is quite interesting, that I'm sure a few people have brewed up as of late. This is Superhan's Dino Crown deck. So this is an Elysian-based Dino deck, as you would assume, playing Crown of Possibilities to try and add a little bit of flavor and spice to the various units you're going to be pulling up.
Yep, it's the point of this deck is they want to play dinosaurs. All of the dinosaurs interact favorably with redraw effects, Sauropod, T-Rex, Hatchling. So he wants to just get crowned for value anyways and be redrawing them the whole time. So we'll see how Skilly, Gron, and friends perform in this matchup as we jump into game one.
Yeah, absolutely. And looks like RedWorld is going to have the play here. Taking a look at his opening hand, and this is pretty good except for the lack of double time. That's going to be his only hindrance out of the opening. We'll have to see what Superhan's hand is. Unfortunately, we don't have his hand cam, but
well, there's one.
Oh, well, yeah, there it is indeed. Hibernating Behemoth right off the top. So, ooh, and an echoed card.
Yeah, RedWorld is going to want to apply a lot of pressure to this matchup, because the Dino Crown deck does have pretty solid late game. If it's not pressured and it can put Crown in play, start recurring some things, giving them keywords, it does go over the top of most decks. So RedWorld's going to really hope to get the Sandstorm Titan in play on turn 4, which he can now. He drew the Time Sigil. So we'll see if that pressure is going to be enough to prevent Superhan's Dino Crown deck from doing some nonsense stuff.
Yeah, Superhan's definitely with an interesting hand. We know he has the Hibernating Behemoth, and taking a look at his list, I also I know that Echo card is Twin Brood Sauropod, since he's not playing Find the Ways. And
they're actually T-Rex Hatchlings as well.
Oh, yes, you're correct, though. Those could be T-Rex Hatchlings as well. Either way, we did see an Echoed Dinosaur, and we see an Initiate come down and a Crown on Superhan's turn. And looks like RedWorld choosing to get that Sandstorm Titan down instead of a Desert Marshal here. Now, as worried about restricting the power base of Superhans.
Yeah, Superhan doesn't really have a lot to do past 5 mana. You want the initiates to like speed out your turns anyway. Like getting to Crown on turn 2 helps alleviate the fact that you're doing nothing when you play Crown. So the mana accelerator is good, but it's not important at this stage in the game. So RedWorld correctly identifying that, just putting the Sandstorm Titan in play, looking to apply some pressure.
Yeah, and applying pressure he is. Cracking away with that Sandstorm Titan over and over is going to be quite a problem for Superhans. And now that that initiate gets silenced and we see another Echo picked up, we know Superhans is not gonna have a power here, so he's gonna have to struggle to make a play on 4. Probably gonna be another Terriax hatchling, and we do in fact see that come down.
Yeah, the Terriax hatchlings look very anemic here. They aren't as bad as they look when you actually get a bunch of them out and you pump them with Patriarch, or even just give a bunch of them keywords, pump them with Twinning Ritual. There's a lot of ways where these cards actually become good, but it's interesting that Superhan's deck only has 2 Twinning Rituals and 3 Nesting Aviasaurs, no second sights. So he actually doesn't have a lot of ways to recur things once he has Crown in play, so he's going to rely heavily upon just naturally drawing things like this Twin Brood Sauropod that got overwhelmed.
Yeah, very true. And so we do see the Twin Brood Sauropod get picked up. So that was coming off the top of the deck 2 turns ago, and it has Overwhelm on it, so there should be another one in hand holding Overwhelm. Obviously, due to the changes that they made to how Crown interacts with Echo, there's not a second keyword on the second card of the Echo anymore, unfortunately, but
when we see this Torch for like Savage this double block, Sandstorm Titan just gets to eat the Sauropod for free, and now RedWorld is incredibly far ahead. We know that Superhan's hand is at least a Sauropod, which can't rumble with the Titan by itself. That's another Titan. So it's going to be interesting to see if Superhan's can cobble together anything to come back in this game.
Yeah, very interesting out of RedWorld there, getting in with that Torch. That was actually super cool to see out of him, finally seeing a little bit of that fire actually come through in the deck. We haven't seen anything other than the Combri cards up until now, but that Torch ends up being super important for RedWorld.
Yeah, it's like it's interesting that you could triple block there, and if he doesn't have it, it's actually not a huge cost because it's only 5 toughness. He would still only kill the Sauropod in 1 bird. So it's possible Superhan could have played more conservatively around the Torch. But here we see a Predatory Carnosaur come in and eat a Sandstorm Titan, and Predatory Carnosaur is going to do a lot of work on this board. It will block the other Titan when it untaps, but this Mystic Ascendant is also going to do a great deal of work and may overpower Han in a short order.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see RedWorld just pushing in with the Sandstorm Titan, Seraph, and Desert Marshal here. And Superhans is going to be very low, and RedWorld has great Parliament to reload with. So Superhans is going to need a lot of help here getting off this board.
Yeah, the Sauropod just doesn't like rumble well with any of these giant creatures. It's a little bit smaller than normal 5 mana creatures because it makes 2 of them. So that's the balance there. So that's working more towards a long game, which is not really what's going on here. He's just getting beat up by giant 5/6s and 6/6s. Although we do see RedWorld elect to not attack there. He didn't really have profitable attacks into the 6/6. He has to wait until he draws another power to draw them Mystic Ascendant.
Yeah, very true. He does need to get that Mystic Ascendant up to an 8/8 before he can start swinging with it. And I think RedWorld's definitely in a position where he's comfortable just taking the slow game here. He's got the Seraph on board. He's got the Mystic Ascendant. This is really in Superhans' court to, kind of answer here.
And there is the power, which if he wants to, will pump both of these Mystic Ascendants. It would preclude him from playing the Parliament for 2 this turn, but he does play the other Mystic Ascendant. I think that's okay. Gets a giant 8/8, which can attack. It actually doesn't have super profitable attacks either. He can just wait. He has so much inevitability now with both these Mystic Ascendants. I think I'm just going to try to build it to a giant Parliament and overwhelm Superhan.
Yeah, I think you're definitely playing the slow game. We see Second Sight coming out of Superhans there. Go ahead and recurring one of those cards, probably the Terriax Hatchling, but maybe a Sauropod. Sauropod would hopefully gum up the ground a little bit better for him.
Oh, and there is Second Sight in the deck list. It was actually not near the other 2 drops, so it threw me off a bit. But so he does have a little bit more recursion than I thought, which makes his late game, as we're moving into that, a little bit better, but I'm not convinced it's going to be better than RedWorld's endgame, drawing essentially 3 cards a turn. He now has 8 power in the air. He can start activating the Seraph. He just has so much going on.
Yeah, he is really killing it right now, and getting 2 owls down there off Great Parliament could have honestly afforded to hold that for a few turns, not really in under any pressure to play it, but it's not exactly like Superhans is going to be able to push through him here regardless. Superhan's going to need to find, I think, Crystallizes is out here.
And this is the cool play I was going to talk about, is he could Desert Marshal his Sandstorm Titan there, so he actually has air superiority and kills Superhan. So a little bit of a cool gamesmanship there as we move into game 2.
Yeah, that was very cute. Making sure that not as worried about the Sandstorm Titan affecting his own board. That is a cute little interaction you can do to silence your own Sandstorm Titan. But let us take a look at the sideboards out of these players really quick. So RedWorld has got 2 Protects, a Vanquish, 4 Decays, 2 Stand-Togethers, a Valkyrie Enforcer, an Auric Runehammer, 2 Throne Wardens, and 2 Acarias.
Yeah, there's not a lot I love here. I think his matchup is already pretty good. I guess the torches are a bit underwhelming, but they do hit the mana creatures. He could bring in Decay if he felt inclined to disrupt Crown, but I'm not sure that that's the best way to do it. I think you just want to play cards that apply pressure and kill your opponent.
Yeah,
but maybe if there's something underwhelming that he wants to take out, Decay can come in instead.
Yeah, I like to think Vanquish and Valkyrie Enforcer will probably make a splash appearance here. Going to be good cards for helping hold off the dinos. Superhans himself, though, with the Dino Crown deck, we've got 2 Borderlands Waykeepers, 3 Lightning Strikes, 3 Rain of Frogs, a Thunder Strike Dragon, 4 Decays, a Passage of Eons, and a Polymorph. So I can assume that we'll be seeing a couple of these come in, things like the Polymorph, possibly the Rain of Frogs as well, maybe even the Thunder Strike Dragon.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at the Rain of Frogs here. The big combat deck actually has a few cards that are like disproportionately more important than everything else. Like tagging Mystic Ascendant with the Rain of Frogs really hampers RedWorld's ability to snowball in the late game. And even like Martial Ironthorn as well. Like there's a lot of good hits, Great Parliament. And hitting any of these top end cards really disrupts RedWorld's ability to win the late game, which then would in turn allow Superhan to go over the top with Crown of Possibilities and stuff.
Very true. He does need time to set up that combo. Some interesting... Man, this Dino deck is really cool, though, I have to say. I mean, I know we didn't get a lot of time to talk about it in the beginning, but, he's got the Teriax Hatchlings, the Vorlunks, the Patriarchs. I mean, he went all in, putting in every Dino he thought he could pack in here.
Yeah, just search Dino on the deck list screen, put everything in. I think the Horde Vorlugs are a little loose. I actually like everything else, even the Teriax Hatchling. I've experimented with a bit with this deck myself, and the Hatchlings are not as bad as you would think. They are good enough in this deck, just as things that you can recur off Crown or good targets to pump with your Patriarch or even the Twinning Ritual to have a lot of power in the air.
Yeah, definitely. It's curious to see, and like obviously it's not exactly necessary, but I kind of like Ageless Mentor in decks like this. Since you're playing such a high end, it's very likely that Ageless Mentor is going to hit a lot of cards, but we obviously don't see that included, instead favoring the Aviasaur Patriarch and a few other interaction cards, such as the Nesting Aviasaurs for the bounce.
Yeah, I think you like kind of run out of deck slots is the problem if you want to play the Crown package. If you want to just play like normal dinosaurs, then Ageless Mentor becomes very good. It pumps your Aviasaur, your Sauropod, your Carnosaur, your Patriarch. All of those are like very relevant cards to pump. So when you can find room for it, it's good, but it's usually hard to. And as we move into game 2, we will see how things play out.
We will indeed. Let's take a look at what's going on here. We see RedWorld with a bit of an awkward hand off the start. Probably going to pitch this one. He's got an Acaria and a Jack, but no, actually decides to keep it. Interesting. I mean, he does have Find the Way, which will help him get some of that power, but this is a very interesting starting hand to keep. Going to need a lot of fire influence to get that Acaria down.
Yeah, it's also very slow. He's not going to be able to apply pressure, and we see the initiative stands on their side allows Superhan to actually speed out his creatures that are a little below rate, but when they come in ahead of time, then mitigates that to some degree. So we'll see if RedWorld is able to get through this, Find the Way, actually play some stuff before Superhan actually gets initiative, is able to fight from ahead instead of behind like he did last game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like RedWorld's going to be on the slow game plan of getting to Harsh Rule and hoping to, clean Superhan's board up. But if Superhans can grab a crown and establish it and, put a few things on board without overcommitting, this could be a nice little nice gap for him. Ooh, and we see a rain of frogs coming down. This is going to be big.
Yeah, he could even he could hit the harsh rule here, which allows him to play the game in a completely different way. He doesn't have to care about overextending. He could take the Iron Thorn, which really curbs RedWorld's ability to build up the Ikaria. I think those are the real two targets. Maybe he could take Ikaria because it is a very hard card to beat for the Elysian deck. I think he does have a couple Scorpion Wasps, though. He actually does not. So that might be the option because that card's not really beatable unless he has a bunch of flyers in the air. But he does choose to kind of take the Ikaria by hitting the Iron Thorn, so that Ikaria is now very, very far away.
Yeah, that Ikaria is going to be very far away with only a single fire influence on RedWorld on turn 4. Back to Superhans, and Superhans has the Polymorph. He's going to take care of the Seraph, but Superhans not actually hitting power that turn, not going to have that acceleration that he really needs here. Definitely when you have the initiate down on turn 1, you're looking to get very far ahead of your opponent, and unfortunately Superhan's not able to do that.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that he was unable to play really anything proactive. Even a crown there to start building things up would have been great. But the fact that he's kind of just spun his tires the past few turns on this harsh rule is going to essentially double stone rain him, kill 2 mana. That's puts him very far back. Now RedWorld is at 6 mana. He can play Jack next turn or Mystic Ascendant if he draws a power. He's pretty far ahead.
Yeah, he is very far ahead right now. Superhan's missing power for another turn, unfortunately, and this might just be too much for him. We see Polymorph coming down. I mean, he's making a very valiant effort to try and handle the board, but unfortunately, seeing RedWorld's hand, we know it's not going to be enough.
Yeah, and we see RedWorld elect to throw down one of the Mystic Ascendants naked this turn without power because he has another one. He has so many expensive spells in his hand. He just wants to start unloading them. He can't really get full value from all of them, or at least he doesn't have to if this Mystic Ascendant was to get polymorphed or something.
Yeah, exactly. If the Mystic Ascendant gets polymorphed, he's not even too upset, given that he's still holding another Mystic Ascendant, Jack Ikaria, and Parliament, and even picking up a Seraph off the top. So RedWorld in a very solid position right now. Superhan's struggling a little bit with that power. Going to need something big here.
I guess Teriax Hatch or Patriarch is the way to start. It does allow everything. It does reduce the cost of presumably most of the other things in his hand. Although Jack is going to silence and stun it, allowing both damage to come in and preventing the cost reduction on the dinosaurs this following turn.
Yeah, and Superhans is going to need something big here. He's going to need something really big to be able to handle all this power that's going to be coming through next turn. Looks like it's going to need to be at least... I'm not actually sure what he can get here. I mean, we already saw him play 2 polymorphs down. That's a lot of the removal package in his deck. Maybe some permafrost, but...
Yeah, this deck is just not equipped to play from behind. It needs to get ahead, or at least be remotely stable, so it can snowball with its creatures with a bunch of keywords, or get all the echo things in play, convert that to value. But it looks like Superhan was able to do that. Lethal damage will come through, and that is the match.
Yeah, unfortunately, Superhan's going to go down there at 0-2. RedWorld picking that one up with the Fiery Combry list. And not too unsurprising, the deck definitely felt strong. And Dino Crown is, a very cute deck. Not necessarily the most consistent, which is why we haven't seen a lot of play. But we are about to jump into a backup match. It's going to be tvkelley on Shimmering Combry versus Peaceful on Elysian Midrange. And we're seeing players in their sideboards right now. Yeah, we're watching tvkelley take a look at his sideboard. Looks like he's increasing his count on Titans. Let me go ahead and pull his deck list up to see what his sideboard looks like exactly. And
we do see that he has the Lightning Storms, 3 Decays, 2 Stand Together, Praxis Displacer, Rain of Frogs, and Great Parliament. Against the like Elysian mid-range matchup, not a lot of these are attractive. Their creatures are pretty redundant, so Rain Frogs isn't great. They don't have a lot of attachments, so Decay isn't great. Although Decay does remove Permafrost, that might matter. He doesn't really have a great deal of options here.
Yeah, we see tvkelley bringing in, interestingly enough, the 3 lightning storms. So that's a little bit interesting for the Elysian mid range, but they at least have a few targets laying around, so it's not like it's a complete blank.
Just to see Peaceful's deck here, we do see Scouting Party in Peaceful's deck. That is likely the reason the tvkelley wanted to bring in the lightning storms. Outside of that, there aren't a lot of targets. There's like some stray Amber Acolytes and Temple Scribes and stuff, but you don't want to like sideboard for those cards, especially when they replace themselves. But we will see how these sideboard plans come into play as we move into the next game here. And we will see what tvkelley does with his opening hand. He chooses to pitch that back, and this looks pretty reasonable.
Yeah, this is a lot better. It's a little slow out of the gate, but I think he can definitely afford to take a little bit of time with the Elysian mid-range deck. Especially since Peaceful doesn't have Initiate of the Sounds on turn 1 to really accelerate him. This is going to be a nicely paced out game for the first few turns.
Yeah, tvkelley is probably, or I'm sorry, Peaceful is probably going to try and be the aggressor here. He has a lot of big creatures like Surso, Sandstorm Titan, False Prince, Champion of Wisdom when it's online, all apply a great deal of pressure. And I do think that tvkelley is pretty well equipped to win the late game with Shimmer Pack, although Peaceful does have Xenon Obelisk of his own and Scouting Parties, and Shimmer Packs, actually. So it is functionally a Shimmer Pack mirror, but I think that Peaceful is a little bit more aggressive in his deck building.
Yeah, definitely a little bit more aggressive indeed. And interesting inclusion we see in tvkelley's hand right there. Minotaur Ambassador, which we have seen a little bit in these Shimmering Combry lists, generally included since it bridges the gap perfectly between itself and Shimmer Pack, the card that obviously the deck draws half of its name from.
Yeah, I've actually liked Minotaur Ambassador a lot. It is one of the few cards that actually ramps your mana in the game, and obviously ramp as you like move later in the game is worth less. Like 6 to 8 means a lot less than 1 to 3. But in this deck, getting from 6 to 8 actually matters quite a bit because of the second half of Xenon Obelisk and Shimmer Pack. So a card that is like a little bit underwhelming gets a 6-mana 3/5. The ability is so good, it matters a lot in this deck.
Yeah, and we see a Peaceful play Sandstorm Titan the other turn and attack with it on his next turn. tvkelley ends up catching that with a Scorpion Wasp, and we see a Surso established for Peaceful on the way back, but tvkelley with the quick Vanquish to answer.
Yeah, Surso is a huge threat, so it's very lucky for tvkelley to have the Vanquish there. The Pig Father definitely would have run roughshod over the game if left unanswered, although tvkelley can't cobble together like 3 random Talir's Favorites or whatever and make enough pigs to block down the Surso in some situations.
Yes, he definitely can with the Talir's Favorite, and that actually ends up working out pretty well for him, but not going to matter here. We do see tvkelley hitting this Minotaur Ambassador, and this is going to mean Seraph is online for next turn, so Peaceful going to have a way to answer this.
Yeah, it's actually interesting looking through Peaceful's deck list. He only has Permafrost in the sideboard, so if he brought those in, he'll be able to potentially deal with the Seraph, but if not, Seraph could run away with this game. But if Peaceful does have the answer to Seraph, tvkelley's out of gas.
Yeah, very true. Peaceful needs to hit an Obelisk right here, and he could very easily swing this game in his favor. And we're going to see what Seraph wants to pull out. And Ikaria as a 10/10 is pretty good, I have to say. That is one of the better, if not the best, Seraph hit.
Yeah. Last week we had a lot of high-end Seraph hits. We saw Ikaria. Last week we saw Ancient Terrazon. I think we saw Surso. And Seraph's top 5% hit rate keeps on going here in the Eternal Tournament Series.
Yeah, Seraph is doing an incredible job, and that was absolutely huge for tvkelley. He needed something really great there, and does in fact get it. And now the Ikaria is going to pose quite a problem here. And we see an 0-4 Talir's Favorite coming down. Not exactly what tvkelley was looking for, but, it is a little hard to complain when your first Seraph hit of the day pulls Ikaria.
I mean, between those two, it's average, right? You got a 10-10, you got an 0-4, so I guess you could say TT's running average.
Yeah, running completely average there. I mean, it's pretty good, though. Definitely going to have some blockers there. So tvkelley's not going to have a free path to Peaceful's face, but all the while he is building these just massive Warcry triggers. And it's hard to imagine Peaceful's going to be able to find a way out of this situation.
Yeah, the Ikaria's Warcry 5 here is actually excellent. As you saw, it made the Scorpion Wasp a 6/6 flash, which is actually a huge deal. And tvkelley's deck has a bunch of these random Talir's favorites and stuff, which all become threats now because of this Ikaria.
Yeah, very true. And wow, actually, it's almost like Peaceful can maybe cobble together enough damage to actually deal with this Ikaria, but we see the Vanquish picked up, so it's unlikely. We're probably going to see the Champion of Wisdom get vanquished if that ever becomes a possibility. In the meantime, Peaceful definitely going to have to be chump blocking this Ikaria down with these 1/1s. So there is definitely some inevitability here out of tvkelley.
I actually think if Peaceful could have played in such a way where they take the 10 there, go to 6, and then hope to draw Xenon Obelisk, and then you have the 2 3/3s and the 9/9 in the air that could potentially block down the Ikaria. He can still do that with a Xenon Obelisk, although anything that removes either the Wisp or the Champion causes the House of Cards to fall down.
Yeah, and we do see that, unfortunately, in tvkelley's hand. He's going to have the Vanquish to take care of that Champion of Wisdom, but Peaceful, unaware of that currently, trying to find some way out of this position. He is going to at least, bash in with this 10-10. And
yeah, the Copper Condor does have profitable attacks here, not much else, though. Although he could Wasp it if he feels like it, but it's unclear if he needs to. It's 6 damage on the crackback, so.
yeah, very interesting that he decides not to block at all there. Ooh, and some false sprints is coming down. This is actually getting, a little bit dicey for tvkelley. Scouting Party probably going to fix that, but, well, actually not particularly, because the Overwhelm does create a problem, but fortunately he does have some blockers here. This Ikaria will definitely match up against these 7/7s well, even if it can't handle the 10-10 quite as effectively.
Yeah, and we still do have a Seraph activation coming this turn, presumably, unless he elects to play a Mirrorstone Disciple or Scouting Party. So another giant blocker could potentially rumble with these 7/7s. Right now, the Ikaria and the 2/10 check the 2 7/7s, and then he could just block a Talir's favorite on the 10th. Actually, this crackback is pretty potent. I don't think he can attack with the Wasp here. The Ikaria is a free roll because of the endurance, but I'm not sure he can attack with much else.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement here. I think he really needs to hold this Wasp back, but he's going to get in with it to presumably give him lethal damage on the next turn.
It does force the Wisp to chump block, which does matter, but I think that the 6 toughness on this Wasp is very relevant as crackback. Now, if he could elect to hit Seraph, and if the Seraph has a bad outcome, that's not enough. And even playing both the Mirrorstone Disciple and the Scouting Party here, which he actually can't do because his board is full, he does not have a lot of toughness back on defense.
No, he really doesn't here. That is definitely important to note. These Scouting Party tokens are almost exclusively going to get chumped into this 10-10, I would assume. But that's not very effective. He should honestly put the Auric Sentry maybe in front of the 10-10, but it looks like he's just going to find another way to soak all that power. Scouting Party tokens likely going to pick up all the creatures that don't have Overwhelm, since that is what they are good for.
Yeah, Seraph will probably go in the 3/3 or not, I guess. But these Scouting Party tokens are just going to block the things without trample. Let this Ikaria just live this turn so you can crack back with Ikaria and presumably win the game. Although if tvkelley does have Wasp of his own, another Wisp, another Champion, then Ikaria is not lethal this turn, and then the crackback from Peaceful might be.
Yeah, Peaceful could very easily swing this game here, although he does end up throwing the concession, unfortunately. And that will, well, I would like to say that will do it, but I'm not entirely sure how many
Oh, we're going to game
matches.
3? Or was that?
No, it appears that tvkelley's saying good game, so I do
Okay.
believe that means tvkelley took the series at least 2-1, possibly 2-0. Either way, some solid play out of both of our players there. tvkelley navigating the matchup with Shimmering Combry very well. Definitely, when you pop out an Ikaria on your Seraph, a slight advantage over your opponent in most situations, I would argue.
Yeah, that's usually going to be enough to win you the game. The Karia is probably the best off Seraph. You could make an argument like Cerso in some situations, but it's definitely top 5%. But it was cool to see in both of our games, all 4 decks were pretty different than what we've seen before, at least not Stone Scar. But we see the format slowing down a bit. Like the Shimmering Combray deck is very slow. That Elysian Midrange deck was built in such a way where they're trying to win the long game. We saw a Crown deck trying to do all these like late game interactions, and RedWorld's Fiery Combray deck also trying to win the late game. So now that Jito is gone and Stone Scar took a bit of a hit, people are less concerned about surviving the early game, so they can put more of their power towards the mid and late game.
Yeah, very true. Some people would call this the era of the Titan, because I have a feeling we are going to be seeing a lot of Sandstorm Titans being cast these days. It's very efficient as a 4-drop, and we are going to see, as you were saying, a lot of these decks slow down and try to play this mid-range game and just play for a longer game without the threat of Stone Scar really, beating you down in 3 or 4 turns and, Jito pushing you over. You really can kind of afford to slow your strategy down a little bit and play for the more complicated board states, the longer games, the board stalls, the card advantage. Some things that I know a lot of our players are going to find refreshing to actually get to do.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were a bit confused about the nerfs to the Felon cards like Witch and Staff of Stories, but after Jito gets hit and Stone Scar gets hit and the format slows down, cards like that do become a lot more powerful, and especially when you consider possible implications in set 2, it makes a lot more sense that they would be willing to hit those cards, even if Felon wasn't really like running roughshod over the format in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Just taking it down a notch. I definitely think that I, as many other people, overreacted to the Fel nerfs when we first saw them. I was definitely considerably more upset than I was once I, just took a little bit to think about it, and I wasn't as concerned. The Withering Witch nerf wasn't all that important. Azandal's Gift really didn't matter. Like the influence changes were pretty negligible for the Felm deck, given that a lot of the Felm decks are probably going to start playing Champion of Cunning now, so you're trying to hit a bunch of influence anyway, so influence change is definitely not going to affect them. Staff of Stories is a little bit of a hit, but it's definitely not the end of the world for the Felm deck.
Yeah, I've always tried to build the Felon decks with some amount of proactivity because there is really a late game thing you're building towards. Like there's Channel the Tempest is like probably the biggest thing you can build towards in the late game, but even that is just a draw 3. So you want to have some level of proactivity and ability to kill your opponent. Champion of Cunning does that very well. I definitely agree with seeing players move forward towards that in the future.
Yeah, and I am excited for that to become one of their primary threats. Champion of Cunning, very annoying for a lot of decks to deal with when it's fully powered up. It can pose a very lethal threat. But that, I think, is I think we're done for this round, guys. We are going to take a very short break. We've only got 2 open matches left, and after that break, we are going to jump back in for coverage of round 2 of the Open today. So stay tuned, everybody.
See you soon.